Isn't it time that all churches get excited about church security? Hi, everybody. John McLaughlin, your current chair of the Iowa Firearms Coalition. And joining us today on Warrior Wednesday is Carl Chinn. Carl is the founder of the Faith-Based Security Network, FBSNamerica.com. It's a group I've been involved with for several years. And Carl, first of all, welcome, and tell folks what is FBSN and why they should consider getting involved with you.
John, thank you. And thank you for having me on. And thank you for all you do for your extended community. My goodness, you are really invested in multiple communities. And I appreciate your heart for protection and for keeping folks on the cutting edge of awareness, really, more than anything. And the FBSN, in answer to your question, the Faith-Based Security Network, is a 501c3 membership association of the church volunteers across this country who are serving their churches and faith-based organizations every week. It's a place to bring them together where they can connect to each other, share ideas, be in a group with collective acumen, and share best practices and resources and all that goes with a membership association.
And one of the questions I get literally every week, someone will email and say, hey, we're starting a program at our church. You know, where do we start? How do we get best practices put together? What are the training standards we should use? And you folks have pretty much already solved that. It's like one-stop shopping for at least getting a good start with these plans. And you guys have your own training standards and a lot of stuff that will really cut the time between thinking of starting a program and having one that's operational.
That's right. And John, I honestly believe, and it's not just because I'm the president of the FBSN or the founder or any of that, it's because I look at what's happening. I honestly believe that the best answer to that question, what should we do? I sure believe that the best answer is join the FBSN. You know, when I first got involved in planning security at Focus on the Family in 1995 as a result of the Oklahoma City bombing, there weren't other models out there. We were pioneering something that we couldn't find other models to go by. And the FBSN is really an organization that solves that kind of issue.
And you come from a background of being, I guess, the unwilling participant in some high-level incidents. Want to just briefly kind of describe your background that got you into this?
Well, I don't know that I would call it unwilling, but I would call it to a large degree unprepared, even though we were getting prepared. My background is construction. I was the building engineer at Focus on the Family. And as such, in response to the Oklahoma City bombing, the leadership there had asked a few of us to form a committee and take a look at Focus on the Family and see what we needed to do to be better prepared for something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was just the building engineer. And as such, me and the folks who worked with me and for me, we were set up to be the backup to security in case something big happened. Mm-hmm. And all of the things that we were putting in, the security cameras, the panic buttons, the intrusion detection, all those things that cost money and needed a contract, I, as the building engineer, was funding those in my department and managing the contracts that installed them. So, you know, that's why I responded to a panic alarm on May 2nd, 1996, and wound up becoming a hostage by an angry gunman.
And you got out of that situation in good shape, and then you went on to become involved again in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, that's right. As a result of our hostage situation, I was the spokesperson for the ministry in the trial that followed that attack. And I was also the spokesperson for the 4 hostages because the other 3 just didn't care to relive it or go through the courtroom experience any more than they absolutely had to. So I worked with the DA very tightly to try to get really maximum penalty for this guy. I've never had any tolerance for crime. And while I believe churches should be forgiving, and man, John, you know, you and I and everybody else in our churches, we've experienced grace. I've experienced grace. We are about grace, but we also don't want to endanger the people that are around us by allowing foolishness like this.
Right.
And that's why I was determined to get the maximum penalty for this guy. And we did. We got the maximum penalty. And as a result of all that, I began looking at, is this an issue? Is there a need for intentional security in faith-based organizations? And if there's a need, is it being recognized? And I discovered in my research and my digging in this, John, that the answer to those questions was, number one, there is absolutely a need. Number two, that need was not being recognized. That's still ignored in a lot of faith-based circles today.
Yeah, certainly. And you have done a great job of keeping track of statistics. And I just reviewed some of those last night. Over the last 2 decades, these numbers of incidents on faith-based organization, it just keeps going up and up and up.
It does. It does. You know, and you know, some people say, well, it's manipulated statistics. It's not manipulated statistics. There are some very black and white things out there. Take, for instance, just one measure, one category is mass murder at faith-based organization. Let's just consider that one category. A mass murder, as defined by the FBI, is 4 or more victims, slain victims in a single or continuing incident. Up until September the 15th, 1963, that had never happened at a faith-based organization in the United States. 187 years of American liberty, and there had never been a mass murder at a faith-based organization in the United States. September the 15th, 1963, 4 little girls were killed by dynamite explosions in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. This last February 2nd, when a deadbeat dad, and I will just call it like it is, it's a deadbeat dad who had no business having visitation rights to his children. And that's a whole topic. Don't get me started on that. That's just angry. That he went in, killed his 3 children in a church and their guardian. John, that was the 15th mass murder at a faith-based organization since 1963. 187 years of American liberty, and it never happened. Now we've had 15 since 1963. Not only that, but deadly force incidents of all kinds, whether it's mass murder or somewhere far below that, are increasing. There is a real issue going on in our churches today.
And folks hear church security and they think they're going to walk on the campus, they're going to see people, you know, toting rifles and visible pistols. It's kind of the opposite. We're more missionaries first and the gatekeepers second, or at least that's the philosophy I know you kind of maintain.
Absolutely. I am passionate about that our first role as a protector in the church is to be an ambassador of Christ. And even though we don't allow foolishness and criminal behavior that puts our innocent congregants and staff and teachers and pastor, we don't want those innocent people to be preyed upon by criminal activity. At the same time, first and foremost, we're an ambassador of Christ. It's not about wearing the heavy hardware under your jacket so you can hug somebody and they smirk and say, oh, you're packing heat today. If you're serving for that reason, you're serving for the wrong purpose.
And I have people ask me, you know, like, oh, it can't happen in this area. You know, this is a safe community. That's really an invitation for trouble if you have that mindset.
It is. It really is. It's that old comment of it would never happen here. And the reason I started publishing my studies, the deadly force incident and the mass murder studies and all of that, was to try to wake up the faith-based community and say, it doesn't matter what your name is on your door or if you got a cross on your roof, that isn't what's going to protect you. You know, we like that passage in scripture where God was dealing with Balaam, and you know, or Jehoshaphat, excuse me, Jehoshaphat. And we love that passage of scripture where it says, I'm going to fight for you. The battle is not yours tomorrow, it's mine. But you know what he said at the beginning of the very next verse? He said, therefore, get up and go meet them. You know, we got something to do here. We don't just sit back and let God fight our battles. We have to stand up and go meet it. And another scripture I love is the 6th chapter of Matthew, John. And I know you and I have talked about this. This is where Jesus told us, don't worry about what you're going to eat, drink, or wear. John, have you run across anybody up there in Iowa? And I know I love Iowans, but have you run across any Iowan that just wakes up in the morning and clothes float down on them out of heaven?
No.
Yeah. You know, and was Jesus wrong to say, don't worry about these things? Absolutely, he was not wrong. To worry about them is not having faith, but faith requires action. We have to be intentional about the things that we purchase and manage to eat, drink, and wear, right? Mm-hmm. Well, security is the same way. We have to be intentional about keeping our people safe.
And I know you're very in line with, you just can't have anybody carrying firearms on church property. Now, granted, there's concealed carry, and if those folks carry, more power to them, but the organization of FBSN or local security networks on campus requires a high level of training. And I know you folks for a couple of years worked on establishing kind of a baseline. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
You bet. We at the FBSN wanted to put out just a baseline shooting criteria. We call it a firearms baseline admittance or something of that nature. What we did is we took the FBI QIT 99 course and we made it so that people who only have access to an indoor range in a big metropolitan area like Los Angeles or New York. Listen, we've got folks in 47 states and Washington, D.C. We have a lot of members in those inner city, big metropolitan areas that don't have access to a shooting range where they can take cover behind a barrier and shoot from their knees and all those things. So we developed a course that is a entry-level firearms proficiency course that people have to pass to at least even be able to carry a firearm. And we stand against legislation that forces volunteers to be licensed by the state. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that we need that level of bureaucracy breathing over the shoulders of people who have it in their heart to protect their ministry. And I have fought against that kind of legislation for years. I will continue to fight against that. Mm-hmm. We don't need these church protectors to have to go through bureaucratic processes to be able to protect their churches. You know, John, the constant argument we always hear is, oh, well, they're going to shoot innocent people. They're going to wound innocent people. And of all the statistics I've done with church violence, you know, I've never seen that happen in a situation. I've seen accidental gunfire where people have been hurt or killed, but it was never during a security operation. Mm-hmm. That's important to notice. In a church security environment, in a faith-based environment, I have never seen a volunteer who accidentally wounded somebody else while trying to protect congregants. Mm-hmm. And how many times, John, how many times have we seen it where a child in a school or a child in a church or a person in a church, child or not, was gunned down and there was nobody standing between them and the killer? Yep. Time after time we see that.
Yep.
I'm a proponent for good training. I'm a proponent for your people getting involved and taking the training serious. but I'm not in favor of it being a state or any other government level ran licensing operation.
Yeah, 100% with you on that. If whether we're a concealed carrier on a daily basis, whether we're a member of a church team, you need to have that high moral standard and that ethical responsibility to be trained to be able to do what's required any given day, any given time. And if you don't have that in your heart, then you probably should reconsider whether you should be carrying a gun.
Right. Yep.
Through FBSN, we've got to meet some amazing people. In February in Iowa, we had a couple of your favorites up there for our Second Amendment Day.
I heard that.
Greg Stevens and Stephen Wilford. So there's a couple of examples of folks who were prepared for when the moment called them. And
love those two guys.
Yeah, for sure. Just that really inspired me about FBSN, is just the quality of people that come and speak at your conferences. And then the other thing I was going to mention is being involved in church security. We hear about internal threats, and folks would send out a memo, whatever, watch for this. And I would say, well, I've already seen that came down on the FBSN, threat assessments and stuff. So just really good work. And just tell folks a little bit behind the scenes what you can. You've got some high level people that are watching threats across the country and not necessarily spreading that to the public, but spreading it out to the bona fide church security members out there.
You bet. We call it the DTI, Distributed Threat Information. And there is when you join the FBSN, you're brought into a forum. And in that forum, you have to be a vetted member of the FBSN to be in the forum. And once you're in that forum, there's different groups you can be a member of. And one of those groups is the DTI, Distributed Threat Information. And we vet those folks one level beyond, because when you're sharing information on a known threat, that's really getting you into some vulnerabilities. There's plenty of case studies and case law to look at where somebody has been, has filed a lawsuit for libel or any of those things, invasion of privacy. And listen, John, it's not illegal to say something about somebody if it's true. If it was, there wouldn't be a newspaper or radio station in the country. Right. But there are things that you got to go through to make sure that you're releasing accurate information. And at the FBSN, we release accurate information that's timely and it's related to threat-based threats that are relative to faith-based organizations. It's not just recycled news. Yes.
So tell folks, first of all, how they can find you out there in social media land to learn more about you, and what are membership costs? How do folks, if they're part of a team or starting a team, how do they get involved with you?
Well, there's two levels of membership. There's general membership, and that's people like yourself, John, who are very active in their church security, or they're a law enforcement officer with a passion for protecting their faith-based communities in their area. That's the general membership. And law enforcement, by the way, if you have arrest authorities and your current duty with arrest authorities, we have a discount for those law enforcement members. But that's available at FBSNamerica.com, and you just go to the membership tab and it'll walk you through how you have to be qualified. And it is a vetted membership. We don't take everybody that wants to be a member. To be a member, you have to either be in law enforcement and active duty with arrest capabilities, or be a first responder, current duty first responder, chaplain, or be active in your church. And you can be a pastor, you can be a lay leader, but we will vet your information to make certain that you're not just throwing a church name out there just so you can get into the membership. Because when you're in the membership, you're sitting in the forum, you're having conversations with others. We know that, like Peter said, there is a roaring lion seeking those he may devour. And it is truly a vetted membership. We will check your background.
Well, we sure appreciate the work that you do and all the members that are willing to stand in the gap between the the bad man, the wolf when it comes to the door, and just encourage folks out there, our friends with the Iowa Firearms Coalition, check out FBSNamerica.com and consider spreading your influence to your local community, your local church, and just being a part of a great mission field. And indeed, it is a mission field. Wouldn't you agree, Carl?
You bet. You bet. It is, you know, when we named church security operations, when we started ours at New Life Church, which we didn't even talk about that one,
Right.
but 11 years after Focus on the Family is when we had the killing at New Life Church that was stopped by a intentional security team.
Yep.
And when we formed that team in 2006, or 2005, just 2 years before the killer came, we very intentionally called it the Life Safety Ministry. And that defines the culture, John. You know, there's so much in a name. You can tell about somebody by the name. And that's why the FBSN is a 501c3 membership association. It's very much like a church.
All right. Well, Carl, I appreciate the work you do. Appreciate your friendship, and be careful down there during tornado season in Kansas.
You betcha. I'll give you a call. Before we head to the storm shelter, I'm going to call you first and see what we can do.
Sounds good, my friend. Have a good afternoon.
All right, my brother.
Yep. Bye.